happy to say. I think Queen Elizabeth II asked economists in Britain why they failed to forecast the financial tsunami. I think it was not possible to forecast it. In fact, it need not have happened. It was an accident that it happened. And I think it's squarely to be blamed on a few individuals who made bad judgment calls. There are always, 0.01% of the economics profession who will say there is a disaster tomorrow. And eventually when a disaster happens, they will be correct. Right?
But what have we learned?
What we learned is that things are unpredictable.
Okay.
Fundamentally unpredictable. And it could not be predicted. And I will share with you an experience. In 2004, I took this job as Deputy Vice Chancellor at Hong Kong U, and I know in 2012, Hong Kong U and all the other universities must grow and increase their student enrollment because this was government policy. So obviously, we had to recruit people. We had to recruit people to prepare for that. It was entirely predictable in 2004 that we must prepare for something that will happen in 2012. So I thought it was my job to prepare the organization, and I, with great difficulty, persuaded everyone to approve to recruit 200 more teachers ahead of time. Had I known in 2008 there would be a financial tsunami, and most of the higher education in the United States would have budget cuts, I would have recruited them now instead of earlier. Because the salaries I would have to pay would be lower. That is a mistake. I don't take blame for it because who would have predicted it? But that is to prepare. And as these opportunities happen, 99% of the companies were not prepared for it. So you must ask, were you accidentally unprepared, or you were actually well prepared, or you were accidentally well prepared? And whatever is the reason, the combination, and see how your competition has fared. If they were caught, as they say, with their pants down, this is your opportunity.
This is exactly what we are going to do this section. Is Peter Drucker said, we cannot predict the future. And that's what Professor Wong says. You cannot, because things would happen. But we should look at the future, which are already happening. There are certain things that we are going, in the second area, talk about. But are there any other points about what have we learned?
Well, let me pick up a couple of those points. And I think Richard related, obviously, a very an important story that if you could have predicted what would have happened, then perhaps you might make a different kind of decision. Now, however, what he has described, and it's not his fault, but in the university, there is no flexibility.
Right.
He said that he wished he could have recruited these people a few years later so that he could take advantage of the salaries. The question is, why is it not possible to respond to the environment that we now face and adjust the packages align with the market wages that people would be expecting nowadays? And that is a problem that obviously universities and also the government to an extent face, because there is a lot of inflexibility in the system. And when it is inflexible, it is very difficult to survive, particularly if you are a commercial organization as opposed to an NGO. Or, in fact, NGOs are exposed to it nowadays, but the governments are perhaps less exposed or less willing to face the problems. But perhaps I'll just address your question just now. What have we learned? I think at the beginning of the tsunami in our company, we thought that this was an American problem. We truly thought that this was only America, maybe Europe, because these people have overextended themselves. We did see that they had paid too much for mortgages, that there was just too much bubble in the economy there. But we thought Hong Kong, China, Asia, this wasn't our problem, because people here were reasonably conservative, especially in Hong Kong, after the problems that we faced after 1997 and the housing crisis that we faced, that people were not overly in debt. And so we thought this is not our problem. The reality was that what happened halfway around the world did affect everyone in Hong Kong, and even the Chinese economy growing at 9% a year, it wasn't enough to defend our economy against the tsunami, and it was truly a global tsunami. So I think we've learned that it is now truly a global world, that you cannot be isolated, you are not alone.
Right.
We've also learned that denial is one of those things that people naturally want to do. And we were a little bit in denial because we thought it's not a Hong Kong problem. But in fact, the denial would have costed us time. And in fact, it costed a lot of businesses time and maybe their lives. Because if you start denying the problem is yours as well as anyone else, then what will happen is that you get caught up in the tsunami and you won't prepare or you don't start running. The third thing that we also learned from this is that you need to take action fast. And whatever you do, do it double quickly. If you think that this is enough to get you through the problem, well, it wouldn't be enough. Just double whatever you thought you were going to do and run even faster. Because if you don't run fast, you won't escape the tidal wave. I think the fourth thing is basically that you have to be prepared for anything. And in fact, in our group, we actually always run contingency models. I think you learn about it from Shell, from a lot of the major oil companies. They always have contingency plans, and we did too. And we always run scenarios where if sales, if rentals fall by 30%, 40%, what would we do? And we had plans in place for every contingency that would have been reasonable. And therefore, we managed to press the buttons very quickly when things gone south, and in fact, we managed to survive and are now ready to fight another day. So basically, preparation ahead is important.
That's a good businessman. Okay, good, thank you. How about Peter?
I have two things that I'd like to share, because I think as a small, medium-sized enterprise today, tsunami actually posed a very good, let's say, an advantage for us, because we're smaller. We can react much quicker to the situation. I think it's up to some of our decision-making process. How do are we sitting down here being panicking and not making decision? Are we looking on the brighter side? Where can we go to survive? We're not considering making profit as the top priority, but to be able to survive and keep the boat afloat. I think that's the most important thing. And the funny enough, I run two businesses here. Peter mentioned this business right there. We thought U.S. would be totally wiped out. But in fact, we look very close into some of the money that actually being still articulated in the market. And U.S. as a market for me in a particular business this year is a winner. So we managed to turn around and say, okay, let's focus on this segment, let's focus on this market, and guess what? I think we broke a lot of ground.
Well, these are all good advices and lessons learned. I remember year 2000 when the dot-com bubble burst, okay? And at that time, I was a CTO of a manufacturer. When everybody, especially the Americans, start lay off people, our company start hiring people. I remember that year, we don't have an order, we don't have any sales for 8 months, but my boss let me hire 70 people.